Imagine you are organizing a huge library of books. Over the years, this library has accumulated multiple copies of the same titles. Some are exactly the same, while others are special editions or have unique cover art but contain the same story inside. Your task is to streamline the library, so that there's only one copy of each title on the shelves, making it easier for people to find what they are looking for without sifting through duplicates. However, for certain rare or unique editions, you might decide to keep one of each variant, recognizing their unique value even though the title is the same. In the world of programming with VB.NET, especially when working with data collections, we often encounter a similar challenge. Our data can have duplicates or items that are essentially the same based on certain criteria. This is where LINQ's Distinct and DistinctBy methods come into play. Just like organizing our library, Distinct helps us remove duplicate items from our collections, ensuring each element is unique. On the other hand, DistinctBy allows us to specify what makes an item unique, similar to keeping different editions of the same book based on their unique qualities. So, both of these methods serve to streamline our data collections by removing duplicates. Now, let's take a closer look at how these methods work under the hood, so that you can understand the difference between these two methods. Both methods come with two overloads, which provide us with different ways to use them based on our needs. Let's start with the distinct method. The first overload of the distinct method is the default one. It's like the autopilot of the method. You don't have to specify any additional information or rules. You simply call it, and it uses the built-in equality comparison to do its job. Here's a simple example. Let's say we have an array of integers like this. And we apply the distinct method. When we call distinct, it goes through the array, picks out the unique numbers, and gives us a new array without any duplicates. That's it, very simple. So, using distinct method, the array is converted to IEnumerable of integer. To convert this IEnumerable collection to array again, we apply the toArray method. Moving on to the second overload of the distinct method. This is where we get to tailor the functionality to our specific requirements. Unlike the default overload, which relies on the built-in way of comparing elements, the second overload invites us to define our own rules for comparison. This comes in handy when we need a more nuanced approach to identifying duplicates. Consider a situation where you are dealing with text, and capitalization varies. In English, apple and apple represent the same word despite the difference in case, but to a computer, they are distinct by default. So, to a computer, these are two different words. That's where the power of the second overload shines. Here's how it works. You provide a custom comparer that tells the distinct method how to compare the items. This comparer is like a set of glasses that helps the method see the items in a way that suits your needs. For example, let's say we have a list of words. If we apply the first overload of distinct, like this, we end up with duplicates because the default comparer is case sensitive. However, if the case sensitivity isn't important to us, and we want apple and apple to be treated as the same, we utilize the second overload with a case-insensitive comparer. By using the ignore case comparer, we have instructed the method to ignore case differences, thus pair and pair are now considered duplicates, and only one instance is retained in the resulting collection. This overload gives us the flexibility to define equality on our terms, ensuring that the distinct method works precisely as we need it to. Moving on to DistinctBy method. DistinctBy is like having a more refined tool for a specialized task. It allows us to specify exactly what we consider as the basis for uniqueness. With the first overload, you provide a selector function that tells the method what to look at when deciding if an item is unique. Imagine we have a list of book titles with authors and some titles are repeated, but with different authors. If we want to consider a book unique based on its title only, regardless of the author, we could use DistinctBy like this. The result will be the following table, that contains only the distinct rows based on the title column. So, here we are using DistinctBy method to define where to look for duplicates, because there are different properties. This is the difference between distinct and DistinctBy. Distinct method can be used for simple collections, where we don't have to define the property to search for duplicates. Whereas DistinctBy can be used for complex objects, where we have more than one property and we have to define a specific one. But DistinctBy can be also used for simple collections. For example, if we want to use this method to remove the duplicates inside the integer array, we can use it as following. The selector function here is very simple. We only use the parameter, which indicates the numbers of the array. The result will be also the same, such as distinct method. Please make sure, the function here is selector function. So, you only have to define the property, but you are not allowed to use a Boolean expression, such as setting an expression like this. The second overload of DistinctBy method is as following. So, here we have an expression like the first overload, and a comparer such as the second overload of distinct method. I think the idea of the comparer is clear and no need to explain it again. These are the overloads of both methods. Let's summarize both methods before exploring more advanced examples. The distinct method is your go-to for simplifying collections by removing duplicates in a straightforward manner, perfect when you have a basic set of data. Use it when the entire object should be considered for uniqueness. On the other hand, DistinctBy offers a more targeted approach, allowing you to pinpoint a specific property to determine uniqueness. It's ideal for complex objects, where you need to focus on particular attributes to establish what's considered a duplicate. While distinct is great for general cleanup, DistinctBy is the tool you need for precision when you are working with diverse properties within your data. Let's now explore some examples about using both methods. Suppose we have a data table with a collection of books, including 3 columns: title, author, and year published. Now, imagine we want to clean up this table by removing duplicate rows. By duplicates, we mean rows where the content in all 3 columns is identical to that in other rows. For example, these 3 rows are duplicates because they contain the same data in all columns. Let's explore how to accomplish this using the distinct method. Here's the LINQ query we will use. In this example, I have utilized the second overload of the distinct method. The reason for using a specific comparer, data row comparer.default, is that rows in a data table cannot be compared using the default equality comparer that works for simple data types. This comparer is designed to compare the entire content of a data row. Every column, in every row, with all other rows in the table. By executing this query, we efficiently remove any duplicate rows from our table. The resulting table will look something like this, with only the unique rows remaining. In this example, we have removed duplicates considering the entire table content. Every column was taken into account. Now, let's say our requirement changes, and we wish to remove duplicates based solely on the title column, regardless of the author or year published columns. For this task, we turn to the DistinctBy method as following. Using DistinctBy, we specify a function that selects the title column as the criterion for uniqueness. So, here we have different properties and we selected only one specific property. This way, DistinctBy filters the rows, ensuring that each title appears only once in the final table, even if the corresponding author and year published vary between entries. The resulting data table will retain a single row for each unique title, effectively removing duplicates based solely on the book titles. This targeted approach using DistinctBy is particularly useful when we are interested in uniqueness according to a specific column rather than the entire row. In summary, we use distinct method to remove duplicates based on the entire table, and we use DistinctBy to remove duplicates based on only one column. This is the difference between both methods. But we can also use the DistinctBy method to remove duplicates based on the entire table. Here's the query. As you can see, I define the whole row as criteria. And I use the data row comparer to compare the rows. The result of this query will be exact the same such as the result of distinct method. Let's take another example involving JSON data, a common format used for data exchange in modern web and application development. In our scenario, we have a JSON string that represents an array of user profiles. Each profile contains a name, email, and location. Within this array, some objects are duplicated, and our goal is to remove these duplicates, considering the entire object. For instance, among the user profiles, we find that John Doe from New York with this email appears more than once. To address this, we can employ the following LINQ query. Let's deconstruct this query to understand each part. The first part of the query is responsible for taking our JSON string and converting it into a .NET list of J object. So, we get a list of J object. Each J object corresponds to one of the objects in our JSON array. After that we call the distinct method using the second overload. The distinct method requires a way to compare each object to determine if it is a duplicate. Here we pass the following comparer, which is specifically designed for JSON tokens, JToken. This comparer knows how to compare each J object in our list, checking all the properties to find duplicates. The distinct method returns a collection of type, 𝗖𝗵PRABLE of J object. Finally, we convert our 𝗖𝗵PRABLE of unique J object back into a list with the toList method. After running this query, the resulting data structure is a list of J object, where each object is unique across the entire dataset. The duplicates have been removed, leaving us with a clean set of user profiles, where no two profiles are exactly the same. Here is the distinct set of user profiles obtained from our JSON string after the query. Each profile is represented just once, regardless of the order or position it had in the original JSON array. This process is particularly beneficial when preparing data for analyses, where duplicates might skew results, or when ensuring data integrity in applications, where unique records are essential. We have covered quite a bit of ground today, from the basics of the distinct and DistinctBy methods in LINQ to practical applications in handling both tabular data and JSON. These techniques are fundamental in ensuring the uniqueness of data, which is a cornerstone of data integrity and analysis. Whether you are dealing with simple or complex data structures, LINQ provides you with the tools you need to shape and refine your data effectively. Remember, the key takeaway is that distinct is best for straightforward scenarios, where you need to eliminate complete duplicates, while DistinctBy gives you the precision to specify exactly what defines a duplicate in more complex or targeted situations. I hope this session has illuminated these powerful methods, and provided you with the knowledge to use them confidently in your own projects. Practice with different datasets, explore the nuances of these methods, and you will find that they become an invaluable part of your data manipulation toolkit.